The child's silence echoed through the exclusive lounge of St. Raphael's private hospital like a held breath before drowning, deliberate and devastating. Every parent within sight shifted uncomfortably, pulling their own children closer, shooting sympathetic yet fearful glances toward the source of the heartbreak. But none dared to approach. Not when they saw the man holding the child. Matteo Russo sat motionless in the leather wingback chair, his shoulders squared with military precision, his jaw locked tight enough to shatter teeth. The sharply tailored black suit that normally made him look like death incarnate now seemed ill-fitting, too formal for a man trying desperately to hold on to something that kept slipping away. His normally unreadable dark eyes held a flicker of something foreign. Helplessness. Raw, devastating helplessness. The child, his daughter, remained limp in his arms, her small body turned away from his chest as if he were a stranger. 3 years old and already rejecting the only parent she had left. 3 years since she'd taken her first breath. 1 year since her mother had taken her last, bleeding out on their kitchen floor while enemies invaded their home. 1 year since Matteo Russo, the most feared don on the eastern seaboard, had become something he never imagined possible. Inadequate. To continue, please smash the like button, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you do not miss our story. Sir. One of his bodyguards approached carefully, keeping his voice low enough that other families couldn't hear. Dr. Chen said the feeding tube can stay in another week if... No. Matteo's voice was steel-wrapped in silk. No more tubes. But Elena didn't care about her father's authority. She didn't care that he controlled territory from New York to Boston. That grown men crossed themselves when his name was mentioned. That rival families had vanished at his word. The child only knew fear, grief, and the absence of gentle hands that used to hold her before they went cold and still. Matteo had tried everything. Pediatric specialists flown in from Switzerland. Child psychologists who spoke in soft tones and expensive theories. Nutritionists who designed meal plans Elena wouldn't touch. Nannies who lasted days before his daughter's silent rejection broke them. The feeding tube had kept her alive for 3 months, but she was still wasting away, her eyes hollow, her spirit dimming like a candle in a storm. 3 rows across the lounge, Teaser Thompson heard the silence and felt something in her chest crack open. Not the desperate wails of a child in pain, that she could handle professionally, clinically. This was worse. This was the sound of a child who'd stopped fighting. She'd seen it before in the NICU, in pediatric oncology wards, in the cases that haunted her long after her shift ended. The terrible quiet of giving up. Teaser closed the patient file she'd been reviewing, her professional instincts overriding the voice in her head that said this isn't your case. Not your problem, don't get involved. But she was a child life specialist. Getting involved was literally her job. Even when the child was being held by a man whose presence had cleared half the waiting room without a single word spoken. She stood, smoothing her fitted blue blouse, adjusting her glasses, armor and credentials all at once. Her heels clicked against the marble floor with each step, the sound drawing Matteo's attention like a predator tracking movement. His gaze snapped to her, dark and assessing, stripping away pretense with the efficiency of someone who'd built an empire on reading people's intentions. Teaser had faced boardrooms full of white administrators who questioned her qualifications. Had endured parents who requested someone more experienced the moment they saw her skin. Had learned to walk into rooms like she owned them because anything less was taken as permission to dismiss her. She didn't break stride. When she reached them, she knelt slowly, deliberately, bringing herself to eye level with the small child who wouldn't look at her father. Up close, Elena was even more fragile than Teaser had realized. Delicate wrists, translucent skin, hair pulled back in a neat ponytail that someone, probably not this dangerous man, had carefully arranged. "Hey there, beautiful girl," Teaser said softly, her voice pitched to soothe without startling. "You look like you could use a friend." For a moment, nothing happened. Matteo's posture radiated warning. "Don't touch, don't presume, don't make promises you can't keep. But Teaser wasn't looking at him. She was looking at Elena, whose small head turned fractionally, just enough that one dark eye appeared from behind the curtain of her father's expensive suit jacket. Recognition flickered in that gaze. Not of Teaser specifically, but of something she represented. Softness. Safety. The kind of warmth that didn't come with clenched fists and barely controlled violence. Elena's hand, so small it could barely wrap around two of Teaser's fingers, reached out tentatively. Not toward her father. Toward the stranger who'd knelt in front of her with kind eyes and steady hands, and no fear in her posture despite the monster looming above them both. Matteo felt the shift like a physical blow. His daughter, who'd refused to be held by anyone for months, who screamed when he tried to pick her up, who turned her face away from every doctor and specialist. She was reaching for this woman. This elegant black woman with intelligent eyes and a professional demeanor, who'd just done what an army of experts couldn't. She'd made his daughter want something. "Sir," Teaser said, still not looking at him, her attention completely focused on Elena as the child's fingers brushed against her own. "I'm Teaser Thompson, child life specialist and nutritional consultant. I work here. I know who you are." Matteo's voice was gravelly, dangerous. He'd had her background checked the moment she'd stood up across the lounge. Top of her class at Columbia. Published researcher. Credentials that should have made her untouchable in the medical community, yet somehow still working contract positions instead of running departments. He understood that particular brand of injustice better than she probably realized. "Then you know," Teaser continued calmly, "that I'm very good at what I do." She finally looked up at him, and Matteo felt the impact of that gaze like a challenge he wasn't expecting. No fear. No deference. Just professional assessment and something else. Something that looked almost like pity for a powerful man being rendered powerless by a 3-year-old's silent rejection. "Your daughter is malnourished, traumatized, and shutting down," Teaser said quietly. "The feeding tube is keeping her alive, but it's not making her want to live. That's a different kind of intervention. And you think you can provide that?" It wasn't quite a question, not quite a threat. "I think," Teaser said carefully, her fingers now fully wrapped around Elena's tiny hand, "that she just told us both what she needs. The question is whether you're willing to let me try." In the terrible silence that followed, Elena made a sound. Not a word. She hadn't spoken since her mother's death. But a small whimper, the kind of plea that needed no translation. Matteo looked at his daughter reaching for this stranger, and felt the last of his control crack like glass under pressure. "Name your price," he said roughly. Teaser's eyes narrowed. "I don't have a price. I have a professional rate." "Then name it." 2 weeks, Teaser said. "Give me 2 weeks with her. I'll create a care plan, work with her daily, teach her to trust food again." To trust. She stopped, the unspoken end of that sentence hanging between them. "To trust you." Matteo knew exactly what she wasn't saying. 2 weeks. "And complete autonomy over her care plan," Teaser added, her voice firm. "No interference, no questioning my methods, no." "Done." The word came out too fast, too desperate. Matteo saw the flicker of surprise in Teaser's eyes, quickly masked by professional composure. "I'll need to see her medical records," Teaser continued, shifting into logistics even as Elena's grip on her hand tightened. "Speak with her current care team. Visit wherever she's staying to assess the environment." "My estate." Matteo's jaw clenched. "She's at my estate. You'll need to come there." Now Teaser hesitated. Going to a client's home was one thing. Going to a Mafia Don's estate was something else entirely. But Elena chose that moment to lean forward, her small body gravitating toward Teaser's warmth like a plant toward sunlight. And Teaser Thompson, who'd built her career on helping children no one else could reach, felt her professional boundaries crumbling in the face of genuine need. "Fine," she heard herself say. "I'll come to your estate. But I'm documenting everything, checking in with my supervisor daily, and maintaining my professional boundaries. This is a medical consultation, Mr. Russo. Not." "Matteo," he interrupted, something shifting in his expression. "If you're going to save my daughter's life, you should call me Matteo." Teaser met his eyes, dark and dangerous and desperately hopeful, and realized with sudden, terrible clarity that she just agreed to something far more complicated than a 2-week consulting contract. She'd just stepped into the orbit of the most dangerous man in 3 states. And his daughter was already clinging to her like she was the only thing standing between the child and the dark. Please smash the like button, subscribe and hit the notification bell. Drop your comments if you want more stories. The black SUV that arrived for Teaser the next morning wasn't what she'd expected. She'd imagined something professional, a town car maybe, sleek but understated. Instead, a vehicle with windows tinted darker than legal pulled up to her modest Brooklyn apartment building, and a man built like a refrigerator stepped out. "Miss Thompson." His voice was respectful, but his eyes scanned the street with the vigilance of someone trained to spot threats. "Mr. Russo sent me to collect you." Teaser adjusted the strap of her messenger bag, filled with assessment tools, therapy toys, and the kind of professional confidence she'd learned to wear like armor. "I have my own car. The estate is gated. You'll need an escort." He opened the rear door, not quite making it a command, but close enough. She thought about refusing. Thought about the 27 reasons this was a terrible idea that had kept her awake most of the night. But then she remembered Elena's small hand in hers, the desperate hope in those hollow eyes, and climbed inside. The drive took 40 minutes, each mile taking them farther from neighborhoods she recognized into sprawling estates hidden behind stone walls and private security. When they finally turned through iron gates, manned by 2 guards who nodded at the driver with military precision, Teaser felt her stomach drop. This wasn't wealth. This was a fortress. The mansion rose before them like something out of a crime drama. 3 stories of cream stone and dark windows, manicured lawns stretching in every direction, more security personnel visible on the grounds than she could count. This was the home of a man who needed an army to feel safe, or to keep others from feeling safe around him. Miss Thompson. A woman in her 60s appeared at the entrance, her expression severe but not unkind. "I'm Maria, the house manager. Mr. Russo is with Elena in the nursery. If you'll follow me." Nursery. The word felt wrong for a 3-year-old, but Teaser kept her observations to herself as Maria led her through rooms that belonged in a museum. Marble floors, artwork that was probably priceless, furniture that cost more than Teaser's student loans. Everything screamed power and money and the kind of danger that came with both. They climbed a grand staircase to the 2nd floor, and Teaser heard it before she saw it. Not crying, but the terrible silence of a child who'd learned that making noise changed nothing. Maria opened a door to reveal a bedroom that was both opulent and oddly warm. Soft pink walls, toys arranged with care, a canopy bed fit for a princess. And beside the window, Matteo stood holding his daughter, both of them frozen in a tableau of mutual helplessness. Elena's eyes found Teaser immediately. The child didn't cry out, didn't reach, but something in her small body shifted, a barely perceptible lean toward the woman who'd shown her kindness yesterday. "Teaser." Matteo's voice was rough, like he hadn't slept either. He'd shed the suit jacket, rolled up his sleeves. The tattoos she'd glimpsed yesterday were fully visible now, intricate work that told stories she didn't want to know. "Thank you for coming." "I'm here for her," Teaser said quietly, setting down her bag. "Not you." Something flickered in his expression, respect maybe, or resignation. "Understood." Teaser approached slowly, keeping her movements calm and predictable. "Hey, Elena. Remember me? I'm Teaser. I'm here to help you feel better." The child watched her with ancient eyes, too knowing for someone so young. "Can I hold her?" Teaser asked, directing the question to Matteo but keeping her gaze on Elena. He hesitated, this man who probably never hesitated about anything, then carefully transferred his daughter into Teaser's arms. Elena came willingly, her small body relaxing infinitesimally against Teaser's chest. From her bag, Teaser pulled out a small container of apple slices, cut thin and arranged carefully. Nothing threatening, nothing medical. Just food offered without pressure. "You don't have to eat," Teaser murmured to Elena. "I'm just going to put this here, and if you want to try one, that's okay. If you don't, that's okay too." She held out a single slice. For 30 seconds, nothing happened. Matteo stood rigid, barely breathing. Then Elena's hand moved. Slow, tentative, like she was testing whether this was another trick, another person who'd push and demand and make eating feel like a battle she'd already lost. Her small fingers closed around the apple slice. She brought it to her mouth. She took the smallest bite imaginable. And Matteo Russo, the most feared man on the eastern seaboard, felt tears burn behind his eyes as his daughter ate solid food for the first time in 3 months. "Good girl," Teaser whispered. "Such a brave, good girl." Elena took another bite. Then another. The piece was gone in less than a minute. Not much nutrition, barely calories worth counting, but it was voluntary. It was hope. 2 weeks, Matteo said hoarsely. "Whatever you need. Money, resources, anything." "I need you to leave the room," Teaser interrupted gently. "Elena needs to learn that eating isn't about performing for you or pleasing you. It's about taking care of herself." The words landed like a slap, true and painful. Matteo looked at his daughter, safe in this stranger's arms, eating for the first time because he wasn't the one offering food. "I'll be right outside," he said, his voice barely controlled. As the door closed behind him, Teaser heard him lean against the wall, heard what might have been a shattered breath. She looked down at Elena, who was reaching for another apple slice, and realized with sudden clarity that she wasn't just here to save a child. She was here to save them both. By day 3, Teaser had established a rhythm. Morning sessions in Elena's playroom, afternoon meals in the sunlit breakfast nook, evening stories before bed. Small victories measured in bites taken, words almost spoken, the gradual return of light to those hollow eyes. She'd also learned the truth. You should know what you're dealing with. Maria set down a cup of tea Teaser hadn't asked for, her expression unreadable. "Mr. Russo isn't just wealthy. He's Russo family." As in the Russo family. Teaser's hand stilled on the therapy doll she'd been arranging. "Mafia. Don of the Eastern Territories." Maria's voice held neither pride nor shame, just stating facts. His father before him, his grandfather before that. It's not a life he chose. It's a legacy he inherited. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. The security. The way people spoke in hushed tones. The tattoos that weren't just art but declarations of allegiance and rank. And Elena's mother? Maria's face softened with genuine grief. Isabella. She was good for him, made him want to be more than what his name demanded. Home invasion a year ago, rivals trying to send a message. She bled out in the kitchen while Elena hid in a cupboard. The child saw everything. Teaser's stomach lurched. A 3-year-old watching her mother die, her father arriving too late, covered in someone else's blood. Probably the blood of whoever had done it. "Elena hasn't spoken since," Maria continued quietly. "Won't let Matteo touch her without screaming. Associates him with violence, with loss. The doctors say she's punishing herself by not eating, like if she'd been quieter, smaller, less of a burden, maybe her mother would still be alive." "That's not uncommon in childhood trauma," Teaser heard herself say, slipping into professional mode because the alternative was feeling too much. Magical thinking. Control where there was none. Can you fix it? I can help her process it. But Matteo, she stopped, aware of using his first name, aware of how quickly professional boundaries had started blurring. He needs to be part of her healing, not separate from it. From the doorway, a voice like gravel. Then tell me how. Teaser turned to find Matteo standing in the shadows where he'd probably been for the last 10 minutes. Listening. Always watching his daughter from a distance, afraid to come closer and trigger her fear. She needs to see you as safe, Teaser said carefully. Right now, you represent the night her world ended. We need to give her new memories. How? The word held desperation he couldn't quite mask. Be present but not demanding. Sit with us during meals. Don't try to feed her, just exist in the space. Let her see you being gentle, patient. Read to her even if she won't look at you. Sing if you know any songs. Something cracked in his expression. Isabella used to sing Italian lullabies her grandmother taught her. Then sing those, Teaser said softly. Let Elena hear her mother's songs in your voice. Show her that you carry her mother's love, not just the memory of her death. That evening, Teaser sat with Elena in the window seat, working through a picture book about feelings. The child was curled against her side, finally relaxed enough to point at images when prompted. From across the room, barely audible, came the sound of Matteo's voice. Rough and unpracticed, the Italian words stumbling but sincere, Stella Stellina, la notte avvicina. Elena's small body went rigid. Teaser felt the child's breath catch, waiting for the scream, the rejection. But Elena didn't scream. She turned her head, just slightly, toward the sound of her father singing her mother's lullaby. And though she didn't reach for him, didn't smile, she didn't turn away either. It was the smallest possible victory. But in that moment, watching this broken man sing to his traumatized daughter while she finally stayed still and listened, Teaser felt something dangerous bloom in her chest. Not just professional satisfaction. Something far more complicated. Something that felt dangerously like hope for all three of them. Please smash the like button, subscribe and hit the notification bell. Drop your comments if you want more stories. The shift happened on day 7. Elena spoke. Not to Matteo. Not even a full sentence. But when Teaser offered her a choice between strawberries and grapes, the child's small voice whispered, TT. Teaser's professional composure cracked. That's right, sweetheart. I'm TT. By that afternoon, Elena wouldn't nap unless Teaser was in the room. Wouldn't eat unless Teaser prepared the plate. Wouldn't settle at bedtime unless Teaser read the stories. Matteo should have been grateful. His daughter was eating, gaining weight, slowly returning from wherever grief had taken her. Instead, he stood in his study that evening, tension radiating from every line of his body as his underboss, Carlo, delivered news that made Teaser's success feel like a trap closing. Words out, Carlo said bluntly. About the woman. The families are talking. Let them talk. Matteo's voice was ice. It's not that simple. You know the traditions. When a woman saves a Don's child, especially a daughter, she becomes sacred to the family. Protected. Honored. Carlo paused significantly. Bound. I'm not claiming her. But even as Matteo said it, he knew it was a lie. He'd already claimed her the moment he'd allowed her into Elena's life, into his home, into the carefully guarded space where nothing and no one was permitted without his absolute control. The old families won't see it that way. She's saved Elena when no one else could. That makes her precious. That makes her yours to protect, whether she consents or not. Matteo's jaw clenched. She's a professional doing her job. She's a black woman with no family connections working for a Mafia Don. Carlo's tone gentled with something like sympathy. The Calvettis are already making inquiries. They see her as leverage, someone easily discredited, easily disappeared, easily used to weaken you. The implications hit like a physical blow. Teaser thought she was here for 2 weeks. She thought she could help Elena and walk away clean. She had no idea that the moment Elena had called her TT, she'd become a target. Upstairs, Teaser was learning her own version of the truth. "You can't stay in the guest wing anymore," Maria said, appearing with fresh linens and an expression that brooked no argument. Elena woke up crying. "Wouldn't settle until she knew you were close." "Maria, I'm not her mother." "No. But you're the closest thing she has right now." The older woman's gaze was uncomfortably knowing. "The child's bedroom has an attached suite. You'll sleep there. That's not appropriate. My contract specifies." "Your contract didn't anticipate a traumatized child imprinting on you like a duckling." Maria's voice softened. "I've worked for this family 30 years. I've seen Don Russo face down armed rivals without flinching. But watching his daughter finally trust someone? That terrifies him more than any bullet." "Why?" Teaser demanded, frustration bleeding through her professional calm. "Because everyone he's ever loved either leaves or dies violently. And now his daughter loves you." The words hung in the air like a prophecy. That night, Teaser found herself in the suite adjacent to Elena's room, listening through the open connecting door as the child's breathing finally evened into sleep. The space was too luxurious, too intimate, too much like belonging to something she'd never agreed to join. She heard footsteps in the hallway, Matteo's distinctive measured gait. They paused outside Elena's door. Through the crack, Teaser watched him stand vigil, his expression stripped of all the dangerous authority he wore like armor. He looked at his sleeping daughter with such naked longing it hurt to witness. Then his gaze shifted, finding Teaser watching from the shadows. For a long moment, neither spoke. "She called you TT today," he finally said, his voice rough. "Children need consistency. Attachment figures they can." "In my world," Matteo interrupted quietly, "what you've done for Elena, it means something. It makes you sacred to this family. It means I'm doing my job," Teaser cut him off sharply. "Nothing more." But even as she said it, Elena stirred, murmuring TT in her sleep, small hand reaching toward the door where Teaser stood. And Matteo's expression told her everything his words didn't. She'd already become something far more dangerous than an employee. She'd become necessary. To Elena. To him. To a family built on violence and tradition and bonds that didn't break just because you wanted them to. 10 days left, Teaser whispered, as much to remind herself as him. Matteo's smile was sad and knowing. "We'll see." Elena fell asleep between them on the playroom floor, her small body finally relaxed, one hand clutching Teaser's sleeve, the other, miraculously, resting near Matteo's knee. Not touching but close. Progress measured in inches. "She's gaining weight," Teaser whispered, afraid to break the spell. "Almost 2 pounds this week." Matteo's voice was barely audible. "Because of you. Because she's ready to heal." Teaser carefully adjusted the blanket over Elena's small form. "You can't force trauma recovery. You can only create safety and wait." "I failed her." The confession came raw and unguarded. "The night Isabella died, I was 20 minutes away. 20 minutes. If I'd been here, you'd probably be dead too," Teaser interrupted gently. "And Elena would have no one. She has no one now. She has a father she's terrified of, who doesn't know how to hold her without feeling like I'm breaking something precious." Teaser studied his profile in the dim lamplight, this powerful, dangerous man undone by a 3-year-old's fear. "You're here every night now, reading to her even when she won't look at you. That's not nothing. It's not enough. It's a start." She hesitated then. "My mother worked 3 jobs to keep us fed. I barely saw her, But I knew she loved me because she showed up. Every night, no matter how tired, she showed up. That's what Elena needs. Your consistent presence, not your perfection. Matteo turned to face her fully. How did you become this? This. Someone who sees broken things and doesn't run. Teaser's laugh was bitter. I spent my entire career being told I was lucky to be here. That my credentials were impressive for someone like you. That maybe I'd be more comfortable in community health instead of private practice. Her voice hardened. I learned to see value where others saw inconvenience. To fight for the overlooked. You're not overlooked, Matteo said quietly. Not by me. The air between them shifted, charged with something that had been building for 10 days. Teaser knew she should pull back, maintain boundaries. Remember, this was temporary. Instead, when Matteo leaned closer, she met him halfway. The kiss was soft, tentative, nothing like the commanding presence he projected to the world. His hand cupped her face with a gentleness that stole her breath, like she was something precious he was afraid to break. When they pulled apart, Elena stirred between them, murmuring "TT" and "Papa" in the same drowsy breath. And Teaser realized with terrifying clarity that she was falling for both of them. For the broken little girl who was learning to trust again. For the dangerous man who was learning to be tender. For a family that wasn't hers to keep. Please smash the like button, subscribe and hit the notification bell. Drop your comments if you want more stories. The text came during Elena's lunch, 3 days after the kiss neither of them had mentioned, but both kept replaying. Call me. Now. Dr. Morrison. Teaser's stomach dropped. Her supervisor never used that tone unless something was seriously wrong. She waited until Elena was napping, then dialed from the estate's library. What were you thinking? Dr. Morrison didn't wait for pleasantries. Matteo Russo? You're working for a crime boss. He's my client. His daughter needs. The board got calls, Teaser. Questions about your relationship with Mr. Russo. Concerns about professional boundaries. One board member actually used the phrase, gold-digging nanny. The racist undertones didn't need spelling out. Teaser's grip tightened on the phone. My credentials speak for themselves. Not when you're living in a mobster's mansion. People are talking. Hospital donors are uncomfortable. You need to end this contract before it destroys your career. The line went dead. Teaser sat in the leather chair, her professional reputation crumbling because she dared to help a child whose father happened to be dangerous. Because she was a black woman in spaces that still saw her as inherently suspect. She was still processing when raised voices echoed from Matteo's study. Carlo's urgent tones, then Matteo's, cold and lethal in a way that raised every hair on her arms. They said, what about her? Teaser moved closer, instinct overriding boundaries. The Calvettis are spreading rumors, Carlo said. Calling her your plaything. Saying she's manipulating you through Elena. They're laying groundwork to discredit her before they make their real move. Then we send a message. Matteo's voice had gone quiet. Deadly. Find whoever started the rumors. Make it clear. Make it clear how. Teaser stepped into the doorway, her voice sharp. By breaking bones? Burning buildings? Proving every terrible thing people assume about you. Matteo's expression was carved from stone, the tenderness from the playroom kiss completely erased. This was the Don, cold, calculating, capable of violence that didn't require thought. They threatened you. With words. Not bullets. Teaser's hands shook, but she held her ground. I knew what I was risking coming here. But I will not be the excuse you use to become a monster in front of your daughter. You don't understand how this world works. I understand that Elena is upstairs learning to trust her father again. And if you handle this with violence, You'll prove to her that she was right to be afraid of you. The silence was suffocating. Carlo quietly excused himself. Matteo stared at Teaser like she'd physically struck him. So I just let them destroy you? You let me fight my own battles. Her voice cracked. Because the moment you fight them for me, you prove everyone right, that I'm just some woman who needs a powerful man's protection. That I'm not capable on my own. You are capable, Matteo said roughly. But in my world. Your world is exactly why I should leave. The words hung between them like a death sentence. The headline appeared 2 days later, Mafia Don's Mystery Woman, Romance or Manipulation. The photo showed Teaser entering the estate, taken from a distance but clear enough. The article was poison, questioning her credentials, suggesting she'd inserted herself into a vulnerable widower's life, implying things that made her skin crawl with their racist undertones. I'm handling this, Matteo said, his voice dangerously calm as he read over her shoulder. The ceremony was beautiful, vows written by them, promises to choose each other daily, to build something new from broken pieces. During the reception, Teaser's phone buzzed. Dr. Morrison's name appeared, the supervisor who'd told her to quit. The message read, Board vote was unanimous. You're appointed Director of Pediatric Trauma Services. They couldn't ignore your published research anymore. Or the fact that you saved a child everyone else gave up on. Congratulations. Teaser showed Matteo, tears streaming. Her career hadn't been destroyed, it had been elevated, proven on her own merit. You did that yourself, he said, kissing her forehead. I just got to watch. Elena climbed between them on the dance floor, holding both their hands. We're a real family now, right? Forever. Forever, they promised together. Not perfect. Not easy. But chosen. A family built on the radical belief that people could change when given reasons worth changing for. That love didn't require surrender. It required courage. And watching his wife and daughter laugh together, Matteo Russo, former Don, current father, forever changed man, knew he'd finally won the only battle that mattered. The one for his own soul.